Today I'm taking you along for a quick and easy makeover that turns a mismatched pair of MCM End Tables into something fabulous, with no sanding, no priming, and no top coat needed. Yep, we're painting laminate and wood, and this process, it's perfect for beginners. Stick around and I'll show you everything, step by step. Plus, I've left links to all of the products I've used for this project in the description below. I promise you can totally do this. These end tables were quite the find. One came from Deseret Industries, I call it DI, and the other came from Goodwill a few weeks later. And while they aren't identical, they're both Mersman brand tables that match well enough to make a cute little pair. A little different, sure, but hey, that makes them more interesting, right? I wanted this makeover to be simple and approachable, no crazy steps. I'm using all-in-one paint, which is the easiest to use. Trust me, this paint does the heavy lifting for you. First things first, I tackled the hardware on one table with a single drawer. I simply unscrewed it from the inside. I took it off because it's easier to paint without the hardware on, and it looks better in the end to do this. I do plan to reuse it later on this piece, so I didn't bother filling in the holes on the drawer. After all, we're going for simple and beginner friendly here. Next, I brushed on Heirloom Traditions paint degreaser called Surface Prep. If you're wondering what that is, it's both a degreaser and a deglosser in one. Super handy to have. I used the zebra round brush to apply it to both tables, and I swear, this stuff works some kind of magic. For example, there were what seems to be Sharpie marks on one of the tables that I didn't even see before, but as soon as the surface prep went on, bam, purple marks came out of nowhere. Luckily, they washed away with the cleaner. That's pretty amazing, right? Once that was done, I grabbed some 4-0 steel wool. The instructions on the surface prep recommended an abrasive pad, but I didn't have one on hand, so improvising with steel wool it was. I'm sure steel wool runs the risk of leaving behind rust, but it's what I had. I used it to lightly scuff the laminate to help the paint stick better. I don't actually know if this step is necessary, but it made me feel more confident about the final result. After scrubbing with steel wool, I rinsed everything off with a damp rag. If you're wondering how well the surface prep cleaned these tables, I'll tell you this. The rag got so dirty. Each time I rinsed the rag out, the water was so dark. So I rinsed the rag and the tables multiple times until they felt really clean. Before painting, I taped off the little brass feet using green frog tape. This stuff is the best for creating crisp, clean lines. I didn't want paint going under the tape and seeping onto the metal, so I took the time to tape everything off carefully. Once the prep was done, it was time for the fun part, painting. I started by mixing the paint really well. We used Heirloom Traditions paint in the color Cashmere. It's a nice, clean, almost pure white. After stirring it for a couple of minutes, I poured the paint into a roller tray. For this project, I used a 4-inch mini roller with a premium 3/8-inch nap from Home Depot. To get into the tight areas, I used the zebra round pointed brush, which honestly, these tables didn't have that much detail, so most of the painting was done with the roller, which is super handy. I love just using one tool. When applying paint, I went a little heavier. Not so much that it would drip, but I wanted the paint to take a bit longer to dry. Why? Well, because Heirloom Traditions paint claims it's self-leveling, and my hope was that the slower drying time would help it flatten out for a smoother finish. I personally prefer to spray this paint on for an absolute flawless smooth finish. Watch that process by clicking the video in the corner, or I've linked it in the description for you as well. I put on one coat and let it dry. It dries to the touch pretty quickly, like 30 minutes or so. By the end of the day, I had a second coat on. The tables were already looking so much better. My guess was though that I would need 2 more coats to get full coverage because white paint is just finicky when it comes to covering dark wood. But that's totally expected. The next day I added another coat of paint. To be honest, the texture was starting to build up more and more with each coat. For most people, it's probably not a big deal since the tables will still look awesome from even like a foot away. But for me, I am super particular about no texture on the furniture in my home. Still, when I stepped back, I could already see how cute these tables were gonna be. But I want to be real, like I am in every single video, about problems that I run into. I had 3 coats on and there was a problem. A spot of bleed through on both of the shelves. Now, if you're a beginner, you're probably like, what is bleed through? Bleed through are typically little spots that are orange, red, or yellow. It happens mostly if you paint over bare wood with water-based paint and no amount of paint is going to cover it. They're stains that are just coming from the raw wood and through the paint, and the stain will just keep showing up. The solution? Shellac or oil-based primer. But not all products work. Trust me on that. Watch our video on bleed through, linked in the corner and in the description to see the crazy experiment I did with bleed through. I sprayed the affected areas with 1 coat of multiple very thin light sprays from the spray can primer to block the stain. Waited 24 hours for it to seal and then gave it another 3 coats of paint. Whites are the hardest to get full coverage with, and yes, if you were counting, that was a total of 6 coats of paint. Another vote for spraying here because if I had sprayed it on with our beginner level cheap sprayer, really honestly anybody can use, it would have taken maybe 2, maybe 3 coats to get full coverage, and it would have taken a lot less time. Because each time I'm brushing and rolling the paint on each of these end tables, it's taking me like 30-40 minutes. I can spray on 1 coat of paint in about 5 minutes for both of these tables. Anyways, with the painting done, I pulled off the tape around the little brass feet and they looked perfect. No paint seeped through that tape. Next up was the hardware. The original hardware was worn. It had a mix of gold and silver showing through, and boiling it in the water and scrubbing it with Barkeeper's Friend, that's how I normally clean my hardware, honestly didn't do much. So I had 2 options: find some new hardware that fit these holes, or spray paint the old hardware gold to match the feet. Since I didn't have any spray paint on hand, I rummaged through my hardware stash to look for something gold that had the same hole spacing as the original hardware. Probably too long, but let's try it. Let's try that. Is this? The holes are off though, but it might cover it. I found 2 potential options and tested them out. It's this. That definitely does not work. Ooh, that kind of looks cool actually. I kind of like that actually. One definitely didn't match the style or color of the gold feet. The other option was sleek, modern, and adjustable, meaning it would fit any size of original hardware holes from 2 inches to 8 inches. So I didn't have to change the holes on the drawer to get this to fit. How cool is that? It looked amazing with the MCM style of the tables. So remember, here's what the tables looked like before. A mismatched pair of wood end tables with laminate tops. They were dark and boring, and here's what they look like now. The little gold feet stand out now against the white paint. I had these tables sitting around for over a year and I was just not inspired by them. They were just so basic. that I didn't think that they would be very cute painted. Boy, was I wrong. They are so adorable now. If you are working on your very first project, please don't use white paint. Use a medium or a darker color so you only have to paint the normal 2 to 3 coats on. And there you have it, an MCM end table makeover that's quick, easy, and beginner friendly. No sanding, no priming, well, unless you have bleed through spots that need a quick spray. No top coat, just gorgeous results. If you're concerned with how well this paint holds up, check out our review video where we test its durability. I've linked that for you. These tables turned out beautiful, and I hope this inspires you to try a project like this yourself. Don't forget to show off your finished pieces because I would love to see them. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Otherwise, hit that like button if this helped and subscribe for more DIY inspiration. Are you confused and not sure where to start with your furniture makeover? Don't worry, I got your back. Click the link in my comment to download our free painting checklist so you can paint your furniture as if you hired a professional to do it.